All right, time for another deep dive. And today, we're getting you ready for a radiation protection technician job interview.
Sounds exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really helpful for our listeners to kind of get a sense of what to expect,
Right.
how to answer those tricky questions,
Yeah,
and what it really takes to stand out from other candidates.
absolutely.
So, to help us out today, we've got 3 great resources. A really detailed career guide,
Okay.
a practical interview guide with lots of sample questions and answers, and some insights into how RoleCatcher's AI can help
Oh, very cool.
you nail that interview.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right, so I guess first things first, what exactly does a radiation protection technician do?
Okay, so think of them as the detectives of the radiation world. They're out there, they're monitoring those radiation levels.
Okay.
They investigate potential hazards,
Right.
and they make sure everything stays within those safe limits.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And this could involve anything from conducting routine surveys in a place like a hospital to responding to a crazy emergency at a nuclear power plant.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty wide range of responsibilities.
Definitely, yeah.
So the career guide actually mentions that radiation protection technicians can work in a surprisingly diverse range of environments.
So, yeah, for sure.
It's not just those nuclear power plants, right?
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. They're needed in all sorts of places like hospitals, research labs, even manufacturing facilities, anywhere radiation is used or handled.
I hadn't even thought about manufacturing facilities.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah. I mean, even places like dentists' offices need someone to make sure those X-ray machines are operating safely.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
I mean, we encounter radiation in so many aspects of our lives. It's
right.
easy to forget about.
Absolutely.
So let's say you've gone through the application process.
Right.
You've landed an interview for this really interesting, important role.
Yeah.
What kind of questions should you be prepared for?
Okay. Well, one of the first questions you'll probably get is describe your understanding of radiation and its potential hazards.
Okay, so that seems like a pretty straightforward question.
Right.
But I imagine it's more than just, giving a textbook definition.
It is. It's really your chance to kind of showcase your knowledge and your ability to communicate clearly and concisely. You want to impress them with your grasp of the fundamentals.
I remember when I first started learning about radiation, I was so overwhelmed by all the technical terms.
Right.
And I could see how someone preparing for this interview
Yeah.
might struggle with how to explain those concepts in a way that the interviewers will understand.
Right.
But, at the same time, they don't want to oversimplify it.
Yeah. It's definitely a balancing act.
Right.
Finding that sweet spot. The key is to strike a balance between being technically accurate, right? You want to make sure you're getting the information across,
Right.
but also making sure it's clear for the interviewer. So you don't need to go super deep on quantum physics.
Oh, thank goodness.
But you should at least be able to define the different types of radiation, right? Like alpha, beta, gamma, and then explain how they interact with matter
Okay.
and why they can be potentially hazardous to us, our health and the environment.
Okay, so you've nailed that first question.
Huh.
What comes next? What other questions are they likely to ask?
Okay, so they might ask something like, how do you ensure radiation levels are within regulatory limits?
Ah, okay, so this is where your knowledge of, the specific regulations and monitoring techniques really comes into play.
Exactly. You want to show them that you know your stuff, when it comes to keeping things safe.
Right.
You're the expert.
So I imagine you'd probably mention regulatory bodies.
Right.
Like the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC.
Absolutely.
And explain how you would actually use equipment like Geiger counters or dosimeters to actually measure radiation levels.
For sure.
And then what kind of follow-up questions should someone be prepared for here?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that could, lead to a lot of different avenues.
Yeah, definitely. They might dig a little bit deeper. Like they might ask, what would you do if you detect radiation levels exceeding the permissible limit?
Oh, heck.
Or how would you handle a situation where a worker's dosimeter indicates potential overexposure?
Okay, that's a really good one.
They want to see that you can actually apply your knowledge, right? Not just that you've memorized a bunch of facts, but you can actually apply it to those real-world situations.
Right, you can think on your feet.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's one thing to know all the theory,
Yeah.
but it's another to actually be able to handle those unexpected challenges that come up on the job.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on to another question that I think comes up pretty often in these interviews.
Yeah.
How do you conduct radiation surveys and assessments?
Oh, yeah. This is a good one. This is your chance to really showcase your technical skills and experience.
Right.
So you want to be prepared to explain those different types of surveys, the specific equipment and procedures involved, and then how you interpret that data.
I bet this is where that hands-on experience really shines.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not looking for someone who can just recite definitions from a textbook.
Yeah.
They want someone who can actually walk them through the process step by step.
Exactly. So don't just tell them what a contamination survey is, right?
Yeah.
Like what it is in theory. Describe how you'd actually do one.
Right.
Mention those specific instruments you'd use, the areas you'd focus on, the precautions you'd take. Really paint that picture for them.
Get into the detail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, the career guide we mentioned earlier really emphasizes the importance of communication skills
Oh, yeah, for sure.
for radiation protection technicians.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that people might not necessarily think about immediately,
Right.
but when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense
Yeah,
because you're dealing with a very complex topic.
it is.
And you need to be able to explain it to people who may not have that same level of technical understanding. So how do those communication skills come into play during an interview?
Oh, they're woven into practically every question.
I bet.
Because the interviewers are constantly assessing how clearly you explain things,
Right.
how effectively you answer those questions, even just your overall confidence level.
It's all part of the package.
It is, yeah.
So let's tackle a question that I think really puts those communication skills to the test. All right. How do you ensure that radiation safety protocols are followed in the workplace?
Okay. So this question is all about leadership, teamwork, and creating a real culture of safety. Remember, you're not just a technician, you're a safety advocate.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah,
So if someone's asked that question,
right.
what are some of the key points that they should touch on in their answer?
Okay, so you want to talk about your strategies for training those employees, right?
Yeah.
Clearly communicating safety procedures,
Okay.
and then actually monitoring compliance. So think back to real-life examples
That's good.
from your own experience where you've successfully, implemented safety initiatives or addressed potential hazards.
That's a really good tip
Yeah.
because it's not just rattling off a bunch of procedures.
Yeah.
It's showing that you've actually been in those situations
Yeah.
and that you know how to handle them effectively.
Absolutely. That's what they're looking for.
And those soft skills really come into play there
Yeah, for sure.
because you're dealing with people.
Right.
You're not just dealing with equipment and data.
And a lot of different people.
And you have to be able to get your message across to them.
You've got to connect with them.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about a question that might feel a little intimidating to some people. How do you handle situations where radiation exposure exceeds regulatory limits?
Okay, yeah. This is a high-stakes scenario for sure. So you really want to demonstrate your problem-solving skills, your ability to stay calm under pressure, and of course, your unwavering commitment to safety.
Right, because that's the priority. So what's the best approach to a question like that? Can you walk us through those critical first steps?
Yeah, okay. So first and foremost, you need to prioritize safety, right?
Mm.
Always. So that means immediately notifying the appropriate personnel, securing the area, and taking those steps to minimize any further exposure. You really need to demonstrate that you understand those emergency response protocols and that you can act decisively.
So imagine having a real-life example to share here.
Oh, yeah.
Could really make your answer stand out.
Absolutely. Early in my career, there was actually a minor leak in a shielded container we were using to transport some radioactive material. And, we immediately followed the protocols, as we were trained. And it was stressful for sure.
Yeah.
But we contained it really quickly and everyone was safe. So being able to pull on that experience is so valuable.
It shows that you've actually been there, done that.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to a question that I think tests your technical knowledge a little bit more. How do you ensure that radiation equipment is properly maintained and calibrated?
Okay. This is where your attention to detail and your understanding of those equipment maintenance procedures are super important. Be prepared to discuss the specific calibration methods.
Okay.
How often you inspect things, your approach to troubleshooting. You're really showing that you understand the ins and outs of the equipment.
So you'd probably want to mention specific instruments.
Right.
Like those Geiger counters and dosimeters and radiation detectors.
For sure. Be specific.
And what kind of follow-up questions might they ask here?
Okay, so they might ask about those specific calibration standards, quality assurance procedures, maybe even your experience troubleshooting those common equipment malfunctions. They really want to make sure that you're not just familiar with the theory,
Right.
but you're comfortable actually working with these tools.
Right, you know how to use them.
You got it.
And I'm guessing this is where those certifications, like
Yes,
certified health physicist or certified radiation protection technologist,
absolutely.
can really come in handy, right?
Oh, for sure. Those certifications demonstrate that you're committed to professional development
Right.
and that you have that specialized knowledge.
Right. So you're not just saying you know this stuff.
Yeah,
You've got the credentials to back it up.
exactly. But it's important to remember that it's equally important to actually be able to explain those concepts
Like,
and those principles behind those certifications. So the certifications are great, but be prepared to back it up.
so we've covered some of the most common interview questions that you're likely to encounter,
Right.
but I know our listeners are eager to hear more about RoleCatcher and how its AI can really help with all of this,
Oh, yeah, I'm excited to talk about this.
because I think it's such a valuable tool,
It is.
especially in today's job market.
Absolutely.
So how can RoleCatcher be a game changer for interview prep?
Okay, so imagine having a personal AI coach, right, that can analyze your answers, identify areas for improvement,
Okay.
and even help you tailor your responses to specific job descriptions.
That sounds pretty amazing.
It's pretty cool.
But how does it actually work, in practice?
Okay, so let's say you're preparing for that question about ensuring radiation safety protocols, right?
Right.
The one we talked about earlier. You can actually type in your answer into RoleCatcher,
Okay.
and its AI will analyze it for things like keywords, clarity,
Good.
and overall effectiveness.
So it's not just checking for grammar and spelling.
No,
It's actually looking at the content of your answer.
it is, yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
It's really cool. It's like having an expert reviewer giving you feedback in real time.
Wow.
And then it can even offer suggestions for improvement,
Yeah.
like maybe adding a relevant anecdote
Oh, God.
or highlighting those leadership skills.
So it's like having a personalized interview prep guide
Yeah,
that's tailored to the specific jobs that you're applying for.
exactly.
That's a huge advantage.
It is.
Now, we've been focusing a lot on those kind of, the really challenging interview questions.
Mhm.
But I think it's important to also be realistic about, some of the less glamorous aspects of the job.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not all, high-tech equipment and exciting challenges.
Right.
There are some downsides that people need to be aware of.
Absolutely. It's important to be aware of those challenges, right, before you fully commit to this career path.
Okay, so let's get real for a moment.
Okay.
What are some of the cons, the downsides, that someone considering this role should be aware of?
Okay, well, one of the most obvious ones, I think, is the potential for radiation exposure. Now, I know we've talked a lot about safety,
Right.
and those protocols are incredibly strict,
Yeah.
but there's always some level of risk, right? Especially if you're responding to those emergencies
Right.
or you're working in those high radiation environments.
Yeah, you can't eliminate risk completely.
No.
Are there any other drawbacks that people might not think of right away?
Well, the work can be pretty physically demanding. You might be on your feet for long hours. You might be working in those confined spaces,
Okay.
sometimes wearing heavy protective gear.
Right. That can be a challenge.
It can be. And, sometimes the schedule's unpredictable,
Oh, yeah.
especially if you're involved in those emergency response situations. So it's not always a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of job.
Definitely not a desk job.
Oh,
Okay, so it's important to be aware of those challenges.
right.
But with challenges often come rewards.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are some of the pros that kind of balance out those downsides?
Okay, well, one of the biggest ones is the job security.
Okay,
It's a field with high demand.
right.
The need for those qualified radiation protection technicians is only going to increase.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And the salary is very competitive, especially as you gain more experience and you get those certifications.
So it's a career path with good earning potential.
Yeah,
But what about the work itself? Beyond the salary,
right.
what are some of the more personally rewarding aspects of this job?
Well, I think the work is incredibly meaningful.
Okay.
You're directly contributing to the safety of the workers,
Where?
the public, the environment. You're protecting people from, sometimes this invisible threat.
Right.
And I think it's a field that constantly challenges you to learn and grow. There are always new technologies, new regulations, new applications emerging.
So it's not a stagnant field.
No, it's constantly evolving.
It sounds like a career where you can really make a difference.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so we've covered the pros and cons. We've talked about the importance of communication skills.
Right.
Let's get back to those interview questions, because I know there are a few more that often trip people up.
Okay, yeah. Let's explore some more scenarios that really test your knowledge and your ability to think on your feet.
I get it.
Remember, it's not just about knowing the right answer, it's about showcasing that thought process and, again, your commitment to safety.
I think that's such a good point. It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about showing that you can apply them in real-world situations
For sure.
and that you're passionate about this work.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I'm ready for those challenging scenarios. What do you have for us?
All right, let's do it. Okay, so imagine this, the interviewer asks. How do you stay updated on the latest regulations and best practices in radiation safety?
Oh, that's a good one. Because things are always changing, right?
Right, it's constantly evolving, so you can't just rely on what you learned, back in school or in your early training.
Got to stay on top of it.
Exactly. So
Okay.
you need to demonstrate that you're, proactive about your learning, that you're committed to staying current.
So what are some good ways to do that? What would you mention in your answer?
Well, you could talk about professional journals, industry conferences, those training courses that are offered.
Okay, so you're showing that you're actively seeking out information.
Right. And don't forget, online resources, those are really valuable these days.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many great websites and webinars and online communities.
Yeah, and you could even mention specific organizations that you follow or publications that you subscribe to.
Oh, that's a good idea. It shows you've done your homework.
Right, that you're genuinely interested in the field.
Okay, so let's say the interviewer throws you a bit of a curveball.
All right, I like curveball.
They ask, tell me about a time you had to deal with a conflict or disagreement regarding radiation safety protocols.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is, because it's a behavioral question.
It is. They're trying to see how you handle interpersonal challenges, how you resolve conflict.
Because it's not enough to just know the rules.
Right.
You have to be able to work effectively with others.
Yeah, especially when safety is at stake.
Exactly. So how would someone approach this question? Because it can be tricky to talk about conflict, without sounding negative or blaming others.
Yeah, you don't want to badmouth anyone. The key is to focus on the steps you took to address the situation.
Okay, so give me an example.
You could say something like, I listened carefully to the other person's perspective. I explained my concerns clearly and respectfully.
So you're emphasizing communication.
Yes. And then you'd say, we worked together to find a solution that met both our needs while still adhering to those safety regulations.
So you're showing that you can collaborate, you can find common ground.
Exactly. And that safety is always the top priority.
What if the interviewer really wants to put you on the spot with a hypothetical scenario?
Oh, I love those. Let's hear it.
All right, so they say, imagine you're working in a hospital and you discover that a radioactive source is missing. What steps would you take?
Okay, so this is a high-pressure situation.
Right, you have to think fast.
Exactly. But you don't want to panic. Start by outlining those immediate actions you would take.
Like what?
Securing the area, obviously. Notifying the appropriate personnel. And then initiating a search.
So you're showing them that you can act quickly and decisively.
Yes. But it's not just about taking action, it's about taking the right actions.
Right, you have to follow those established procedures.
Exactly. So you'd want to mention your knowledge of the specific procedures for handling lost or stolen radioactive sources.
Okay, so you're demonstrating your technical expertise.
Right. You could talk about using radiation detection equipment to try to locate the source, following the protocols for reporting the incident, coordinating with the relevant authorities.
So it's a combination of knowledge, quick thinking, and following those procedures.
Exactly. It's showing that you can handle those high-stakes situations effectively.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about career progression, because I think it's always a good idea to ask about growth opportunities during an interview.
Oh, absolutely. It shows that you're ambitious, you're thinking long-term.
Right. So what are some questions that someone could ask to demonstrate their interest in those long-term career prospects?
You could ask about the typical career paths for radiation protection technicians within that organization. How do people typically move up? What are the different roles they might take on?
That's a good one.
Or you could ask about professional development opportunities. What kind of training programs do they offer? Do they have any mentoring programs?
Oh, yeah, that shows you're eager to learn and grow.
Exactly. And remember, that career guide we mentioned earlier, it actually provides some great insights into those career stages.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
It outlines those typical responsibilities, the skills required at different levels. from entry-level technicians all the way up to those senior management roles.
So if someone is just starting out as an entry-level radiation protection technician, what kind of tasks and responsibilities can they expect?
Well, they'd be focusing on those fundamentals, conducting routine monitoring, assisting with those surveys, making sure they're complying with all those basic safety protocols. It's really about learning the ropes.
Right, getting that hands-on experience.
Exactly. And then as they progress to maybe a junior level, they might start taking on more independent surveys. They might help develop some safety procedures, even provide training to those newer technicians.
Okay, so they're starting to take on more responsibility.
Yeah, they're building their confidence, their leadership skills.
And what about those who aspire to those senior level positions? What does it take to reach those higher rungs?
Well, at that senior level, you're managing projects, you're leading teams, you're developing and implementing those safety programs, providing expert guidance to that junior staff.
So it requires a whole other level of expertise.
It does. Strong leadership skills, that in-depth technical knowledge, and a proven track record of success.
So it's a career path with a lot of potential.
Oh, absolutely. You can really go far in this field.
But it all starts with nailing that interview.
Right. First things first.
And that's where RoleCatcher can really make a difference. We've talked about how his AI can analyze your answers to those technical questions, but how can it help with those behavioral questions? Like the one about conflict resolution.
Oh, that's a great question. So RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze the tone and the language of your responses.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, it can identify potential red flags.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you use overly negative language when describing that conflict, or you blame others for what happened.
Okay, I can see how that would be a red flag.
Right. That doesn't make you look very good. So RoleCatcher will actually flag those areas and then suggest ways to rephrase your answer in a more positive and constructive way.
So it's like having a communication coach built into the platform.
Exactly. It's helping you present yourself in the best possible light.
I love that. And can RoleCatcher also help tailor your answers to the specific company and job description?
It can. It's pretty amazing. It can actually analyze the language used in that job posting and then suggest keywords or phrases that will resonate with that hiring manager.
So you're not just giving generic answers. You're really tailoring them to what that employer is looking for.
Exactly. You want to stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. The importance of showcasing your passion for radiation safety during the interview.
Oh, yeah, that's so important. It's what makes you memorable.
But how can someone demonstrate that passion without sounding, cheesy or over the top?
Well, think about what drew you to this field in the first place.
Okay, so tell your story.
Exactly. Share those stories about why you're passionate about this work. Talk about what motivates you.
So make it personal.
Yeah. You could even describe a project you worked on that you found particularly rewarding.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
It shows that you're not just in it for the paycheck.
Right, that you genuinely care about this work.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to emphasize one more thing. The importance of preparation.
Oh, yeah, you can never be too prepared.
No matter how much you know or how passionate you are, you need to put in the time to practice those answers. Rehearse your delivery.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher can be such a valuable tool for that preparation.
It's like having that personal coach right there in your pocket.
Exactly. So to all those aspiring radiation protection technicians out there, take advantage of those resources, practice those answers, and go out there and ace those interviews.
I love that. Go get them.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much preparation goes into a really successful interview.
It really is.
It's like prepping for a performance.
Right.
You need to know your lines.
Yeah.
But you also need to bring that energy and authenticity.
Absolutely.
You want to connect with the interviewer.
You do. It's about finding that balance between confidence and humility.
That's a good way to put it.
You want to showcase your skills.
Right.
And all that experience you have, but you also don't want to come across as, arrogant.
Right.
You want to be open to learning to feedback.
And remember, not every interview is going to result in a job offer.
Right.
And that's okay.
It is.
Because every interview is a learning experience.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't get that particular job.
Right.
You're gaining valuable practice.
Yeah.
And insights that will help you in the future.
For sure. Each interview, you can kind of refine your approach.
Right.
Think about what went well.
Right.
What could be improved.
Yeah.
And just build that confidence over time.
And don't forget about networking.
Oh, yeah.
That's such an important part of the job search process.
It really is.
Attending those industry events,
Yes.
joining professional organizations,
Right.
connecting with people on LinkedIn,
All of that.
it can really open doors.
Absolutely. It's a great way to learn about different career paths,
Yeah.
get insights from people who have been there,
Right.
done that, and you never know, you might even get your foot in the door for that dream job.
So to recap, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored what it means to be a radiation protection technician.
Yeah,
We've tackled those tricky interview questions,
for sure.
and we've highlighted those incredible resources that RoleCatcher offers
Absolutely.
to help you prepare.
It's a great tool.
It is. We've also talked about the importance of showcasing your passion for safety,
Right.
being aware of both the challenges and the rewards of this job,
For sure.
and always striving to learn and grow in this dynamic field.
It's always evolving.
It is. Well, I hope this deep dive has given our listeners the tools and the confidence
Yeah.
to approach their interview
Right.
with a sense of excitement and preparedness.
I think we've given them a lot to think about.
I hope so. So, to all those aspiring radiation protection technicians out there,
Yes.
you've got this.
You do.
Believe in yourselves, in your skills,
Right.
and your ability to make a positive impact in this really important field of radiation safety.
It's such an important job.
It is. And don't forget to check out RoleCatcher.
Yes.
Take your interview prep to the next level.
It's a game changer.
It really is. Best of luck on your interview journey. We're all rooting for you.
You could.